You are Locked On Cowboys, your daily Dallas Cowboys podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked on Cowboys. Locked on Cowboys.
Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast. I am Marcus Mosher. He is Landon McCool, and today we are talking about Mike McCarthy, who has tested positive for COVID-19 and will miss the team's Thursday night football game against the Saints. But first and foremost, Landon, how are you doing today, sir?
Good. I'm not good. I'm like everybody else. I'm lethargic coming off of the long holiday weekend. I don't want to go back to work. I don't want to go back to dealing with the real world. And then to get a face full of your head coach has COVID first thing on a Monday is it's not the best way to start the week, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, the COVID is just crushing the Cowboys right now. So as we mentioned at the top, Mike McCarthy is going to miss this game, but he's far from the only coach that's going to miss this one. I know Joe Philbin is still out. He missed the Thursday game against the Raiders. The assistant offensive line coach, all the strength and conditioning coaches are out. A pretty big deal. So let's first start with this. How devastating is it going to be for the Cowboys to not have Mike McCarthy, not only for this game, but for the rest of the week? And then, I mean, I just assuming by protocols, at least some of next week as well, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think, and we also can't forget Terence Steele in there too, because
I'll save it in for the next segment.
Yeah,
we'll talk about the players on the field. Yep.
But I think I honestly wonder if having the assistants miss game day is more impactful than having the head coach. I don't know. It's kind of tough, like when you're talking about dividing up the game day jobs. I think it's going to have an impact. Clearly,
I think it had a bigger impact when like Dan Quinn wasn't available to go. Right? It was early in the season, right?
Yeah, and I think the thing is you have two strong coordinators, right? So you feel like as long as somebody is just kind of coordinating the team overall, and you've got a guy that's an assistant head coach in Rob. Is it Rob Thomas? It's not Rob Thomas, right?
It's Rob Davis, isn't it?
Rob Davis. I was like, it's not the Matchbox Singer guy.
It's Rob Davis.
Same voice, same name. Yeah, Rob Davis. Who, again, I don't even know his name because we never talk about him very often, and he doesn't really do a ton of X's and O's. And it feels like a lot of his job description is done, with relationships with the players in the building, that sort of thing, organizational. So, he might be an actual pretty decent choice for this. But if they don't want to go that route, I mean, obviously they've got guys like Quinn himself obviously has head coaching experience.
It's tricky though, because like Dan Quinn calls the game from the booth, right? Like he likes to be up there. Yeah. I don't know if you want to mess with the game day operations and bring him down to the field. Kellen Moore's got enough on his plate with him calling plays. Bones Fossil has enough going on with him running special teams. So do you use Rob Davis? Do you use somebody else? I mean, the problem is I honestly think Joe Philbin probably would have been doing this job if he was healthy.
Yeah. Philbin seems like the guy that's in the best position simply because he has a strong assistant in Blasco and Blasco. And so you think that you could, elevate him temporarily to kind of just serve in that role. But obviously he's out as well. So, to me, it makes sense. Rob Davis is there. He's got the title. Organizationally, he seems to be, that seems to be his kind of his expertise. Mm-hmm. So I imagine, Rob will just be like a vessel for McCarthy throughout the week. Really, the interesting part is, the kind of way things are actually run, in the game, and this being a road game as well. Just kind of all the little things that we don't think about that a head coach does.
Yeah, getting travel ready for the game and telling people when they're going to need to be ready to catch the flight and the meetings and all that stuff. It's a weird week. It already is a weird week. That's the crazy
That's the problem, right?
Going from Thursday to Thursday is already a weird week. You're out of your normal rhythm and routine. And now not only is your head coach not going to be available, but several assistants. It's really strange. And we got to remember it's a COVID year and things aren't normal.
Cowboys can't seem to catch their footing here. It's like they can't seem to get any consistency week to week at this point because of injuries and COVID. You keep thinking next week is going to be the week, right? The Thursday, you're getting DeMarcus Lawrence back, and you've got Cooper back, and Lamb will be back. But then you turn around and you lose your head coach, you lose your right tackle, you lose several different coaches because of COVID. And look, I hate to be like this, but your strength and conditioning coaches are all out. That's not a good sign for there not being more potential positives in the future, considering how many people they interact with.
We did see a report from, I believe it was Adam Schefter today, that the Cowboys have no additional cases today beyond Mike McCarthy. So they think they've maintained or it hasn't spread more, but we don't know, and it's, for the people thinking that they're going to move or change this game, it doesn't seem like it's going to happen. The Saints
isn't going to happen.
The Saints at one point had 9 coaches test positive in a 2-week stretch, and they didn't change their game. So
the NFL's made it clear that they're not.
Yeah, they're not changing games. They're not moving, and they are not going to move one of these games, especially on prime time with the Cowboys and Saints. It's just not going to happen. I want to talk about the Terence Steele stuff as well, because I do think that's important. But before we do that, I should tell you guys about DirecTV. DirecTV Stream brings you live TV and on-demand favorites together like never before, which means you can watch your favorite sports, movies, and shows all in one place. And the best part, there's no annual contract, so stop waiting and get your TV together with DirecTV Stream. You can learn more at directtv.com. That is directtv.com. All right, so over the weekend, we also learned that Cowboys right tackle Terence Steele tested positive for COVID. He will not be available in this game. It remains to be seen if he's available in Week 14 when they take on the Washington football team. It's not the biggest loss in the world because you do have La'el Collins, who's healthy, who's ready to play. But it's unfortunate because it seems like Terence Steele did win this job over La'el Collins, despite you and I both not really expecting that to happen.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an unfortunate step back for Steele, and again, kind of the way that it's trending. I'm hoping that they're out of the woods there, but it's scary that they lost both their offensive line coach, their assistant offensive line coach, and then one of their starters. And that felt like that could have easily snowballed further if they weren't really careful. So it's unfortunate for Steele, like we mentioned, because he had made a move to kind of take that starting spot back. But for the Cowboys overall, I mean, this is going to be the first time in I don't even remember now how long since La'el Collins is going to start with Tyron Smith and get like actual some significant snaps here for at least this week and maybe next week, depending on how things go.
Forever since the last time Tyron, Zach Martin, and Collins have all played together. Because we did have it in Week 1, but Zach Martin didn't play.
That's right. Yeah. So it's been a while since we've had it's been a while since we've had the original lineup, and it's been such a mix and match throughout the year that this is just kind of old hat, unfortunately, for the Cowboys. But it's unfortunate. The Cowboys are fortunate to have a obviously incredible quality offensive tackle to slide in there. But this is a very difficult defensive line to face. And to be shorthanded in any way is not ideal.
No. Let's talk about some of the other injuries and kind of news and notes that we have from the Cowboys.
Yeah.
Ezekiel Elliott, it sounds like the team is at least entertaining the idea of maybe resting him, limiting his touches, setting him for a week or two. What are your thoughts on that?
I don't. Cowboys really need to win this game, and it's tough because you partially feel like you could sit him and he would get these days off, and then the 10 days after that, till the next game, and that would be a nice little rest for the knee going forward, because you need Zeke at the end of the year. You know what I'm saying? Like, you want his physical presence in there. And you don't want to just move to a Pollard only running back situation, like when you're trying to make a run for the playoffs, because you like the versatility there. And Pollard does a lot of things that a lot better than Zeke. But Zeke does a lot of things that Pollard can't do as well. So they have a good combination, I think, that they're working there. So you definitely want to keep him healthy. But again, like you definitely feel like you need to win this game. And I think that having a strong running game is going to be helpful this week against the Saints. So I think it's difficult. But I have to feel like that they need to make this may be an opportunity that they're not going to really get again, right? Where if they sit him, he's going to get an exorbitant amount of time off, right? And maybe that's what you need to kind of get him right to have him finish up, the season a little bit healthier.
My thing is, I don't think playing him and giving him 40 snaps and giving him 15 touches like they did last week does anybody good. I really don't. Yeah. Like, it's just, you're better off letting him get healthy because, Landon, if you watch him in the first 2-3 weeks of the season compared to what you're seeing now, it's like two totally different players. Like
he said he got hurt in October, right? Like October 3rd or something like that.
Yeah, it's when he landed on the pylon, right?
Yeah, it's like it's been a while that he's been dealing with this now, and which kind of makes sense because if you look at where he was, like you mentioned, the first few weeks of the season, he's a different player. It looks like than where he is.
The player that we saw in the first 5 weeks of the season is somebody that can absolutely change a game. It's true. I mean, he was running hard. He was making some incredible jump cuts. He was a weapon in the passing game. The player that we've seen over the last 6 weeks is actually somebody who's hurting you when they're on the field because he's not making big plays. He doesn't have the athleticism to beat guys in space. Let him sit. Let him get healthy. And we're going to talk about this in a little bit, but like the number 1 seed's probably out of the question. Now it's just, can you avoid being the 4 seed? And maybe you don't even care if you're the 4 seed because of the way the Rams looked and the way the 49ers are starting to look.
Yeah, maybe.
Right? So maybe all it should be matter is getting these guys 100% healthy for the playoffs. I think this is a good week to sit Zeke. I will say the only thing that the Cowboys are probably a little hesitant on is in a short week without your head coach, with so many guys missing, who takes over the Pollard role where Pollard does your kick return stuff. He's a personal protector on some of your special team stuff. He does a lot of other things. Can Corey Clement do that? This is where you wish you had one other guy that you felt comfortable, playing on offense, playing on special teams. We shall see. DeMarcus Lawrence, do we think he comes back this week?
It seems that way, right? Like it seems like he's been building towards this, and I mean, it feels like now he has definitely gotten kind of the requisite time off to kind of hopefully be over this. I don't know though. I mean, it's like conditioning is going to be a thing. I think that it sounds like to me that Cooper could potentially be a guy that we need to be careful thinking that he's going to be coming back. So
not play the 100% of snaps like he was before.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if he's active and he's playing only on key spots.
Yeah, Lawrence had a more kind of slight incline back into the work, right? I mean, it's been a slow roll, so I feel like he should be ready to go. Hopefully, but I mean, I think it's going to be interesting to see exactly what his workload is coming back right away. Like they may still, kind of load balance him as well.
Yeah, I don't think. I mean, it's hard not to make him a starter if he's back, but maybe only give him 20 snaps a game. Still let Armstrong and Basham do the heavy lifting, and then Parsons on the edge, and just kind of work him back in. This is a team with two really good offensive tackles, both of which who are healthy and playing this week. I don't think you need to overwork him in, early December. It's not needed. A couple other things. CeeDee Lamb is expected to practice, I believe, today. The Cowboys are going to have a practice. We'll see if that actually happens. Randy Gregory, his practice window has not been activated, which typically means what, Landon? We're at least probably 2 weeks away for Gregory, at least.
Yeah, I mean, if his practice window hasn't been opened yet, I mean, honestly, the practice window may not necessarily apply. He may be able to be activated and hop right back in, just depending on the nature of the injury. He probably could,
but we've seen from this coaching staff that they basically want at least 1 full week of practice before you play in a game. Actually, really,
it does seem like that. Yeah, it does seem like that.
because we saw it with Gallup, right? They wanted to make sure when Gallup came back from the groin injury that he was 100% ready to go. And even the same with Dak. So I guess I don't know why we should be expecting anything different from
Yeah,
Randy
that's
Gregory.
true. Yeah.
And that's fine. Again, everything should be just trying to get ready for a wild card round of the playoffs. Any other injury stuff that we should mention, or is that just about it?
We haven't heard anything about Gallimore for a while, so I'm starting to wonder how soon we are going to get him. But maybe he's on the same timeline that Gregory's on.
It was
at this
a
point.
couple weeks ago. I think Stephen Jones said it's going to be like 3 or 4 more weeks for Gallimore.
Yeah.
We'll see. They mentioned that if he was playing on the edge, he'd already be back, but because he's playing inside with that elbow injury, it's a little trickier. They want to make sure he doesn't re-aggravate anything. So maybe he's a guy that we won't see until the final 2 or 3 weeks of the season, if then. We'll see how things kind of shake out there. All right, enough with injuries and depressing stuff. We need to talk about stuff that's not so depressing, and that's the rest of the NFC. But before we do that, tell you guys about BetOnline, the number one spot for all your sports action. Head to the new updated desktop or mobile website to sign up today to receive your 50% welcome bonus with promo code LOCKEDON. And it's not just football. BetOnline has pro and college hoops, NHL, boxing, UFC, and your favorite Vegas casino games. Don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for the 2021 season. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all of your favorite sports. We also want to tell you guys about Built Bar. You know Built Bar. It's the absolute best tasting protein bar out there. It's hard to even explain it. Real chocolate, amazing flavors, just a great combination of low calories, high protein, and low sugar with no crazy additives. Go to BuiltBar.com right now and use promo code LOCK20 to get 20% off your next order. That is LOCK20 at BuiltBar.com. All right, Landon, going into the weekend, there were some people on Twitter, and I saw a lot of these comments about the Cowboys are going to be in a dogfight for the NFC East with the Eagles coming up, and they're playing really well, and it's going to be really tough for the Cowboys to win this division. And then the Eagles laid an egg on Sunday. They scored 7 points against the Giants. Jalen Hurts once again threw for only 129 yards, 3 interceptions, and now the Eagles sit at 5-7. Are you worried about the NFC East?
I'm as worried about the NFC East as I was the previous 3 weeks when all these people were making up all these storylines about a team that was still below 500, that hadn't played a good quarterback in over a month and a half. And every single time that anybody tried to make their quarterback that they want to believe in play quarterback, he fails at it. He can't throw over the middle of the field. Say what you want about Daniel Jones. At least Daniel Jones will complete a pass over the middle of the field. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think Jalen Hurts may develop into a better quarterback. But as of right now, like, he's just extremely limited and limited in a way that, honestly doesn't make you a threat in the playoffs. They need to have an incredibly solid, and in fact, better than solid, an incredible run game to kind of make that offense really work on any level. And Miles Sanders, can't stay healthy. He can't stay on the field. And their offensive line is getting a little bit beat up now. The run game didn't seem as dynamic last against the Giants. They gave the ball away pretty regularly on some just that's the thing about it, is that it's not even just that there's physical limitations. There's things that Jalen Hurts does that you're just like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like throwing into double and triple coverage, So I think we can kind of put a little bit of that to bed a little bit. That's not to say the Cowboys should take the pedal off the gas, but it's kind of silly to try to suggest that it's the Eagles that are, any of the teams in the East that are going to be a threat to the Cowboys, season goals.
No, the Cowboys could lose their next 3 or 4 games, and they're still probably going to win the NFC East because the Eagles already have 7 losses. So you don't need to really stress it. And the Cowboys have the tiebreaker right now over the Eagles. Couple other things. Did you know that if Washington wins tonight against Seattle, they would be the 7th seed right now in the NFC playoffs?
That just shows you where we are with the NFC playoffs, right? It's just total madness. All the good teams have suddenly been losing games like left and right. And all the teams that we had just, kind of washed our hands of earlier in the season because of all the losses by all the teams above them are suddenly kind of in the mix. Seattle shouldn't be involved in any conversations with like playoff football at this point, the way they've played this year, especially the last few weeks. And like they are still involved in the conversation, not too much, but still they're still there. And Washington, Washington at no point should have been involved in this conversation. I mean, their season kind of got completely derailed early. And again, not because of incredible play by Washington, but more just inept play by everyone else in the NFC. Washington is suddenly kind of in the conversation again.
Yeah. And if my standings are correct right now, if the playoffs started today, your Atlanta Falcons would be the 7th seed.
I mean, that's ridiculous. What is their point differential, for God's sakes? Like,
I'll pull it up. It cannot be very good, right?
It's got to be like record breaking for a team that's even eligible for playoffs, because it has to be like absolutely insane.
Minus 103.
That's absolutely insane. Minus 103, and they're technically in position to be the playoffs if they started today. Yeah, what is happening right now, guys? Like, that's totally crazy. I mean, really, point differential is in a lot of ways as good an indicator as wins and losses as to how a team is performing. And I mean, that I think is a stronger indicator of where the Atlanta Falcons are than what's the record? Are they 5-6 or
5-6? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think the negative 103 point differential is probably a better indicator of who the Atlanta Falcons are than that 5-6 record.
Oh my gosh, what a disaster! All right, let's restack the rest of the NFC. So, the Cardinals were out, or they are on bye in week 12. They're 9-2. Packers beat the Rams. They are 9-3. Buccaneers beat the Colts. They are 8-3. The Cowboys are 7-4. The Cowboys are going to have to do some work here if they want to kind of avoid being that number 4 seed. However, maybe it doesn't matter, because we were talking about this whole time, wanting to avoid the Rams. I'm starting to wonder if you want to avoid the 49ers. I wonder if that's a worse matchup for the Cowboys than the Rams.
I mean,
which team do you feel like can run the ball more consistently?
The 49ers, without
which
a doubt.
Team do you think would do a better job of slowing down the Cowboys' offense?
That's a tougher question. I think the Niners are getting a little bit healthier there, so they might have some guys that come back, but they're I
really worry about Nick Bosa and some of those other guys on the defensive line, and when they get D Ford back, like, can they just rush with their 4 and drop back guys? I don't know.
Maybe, but their secondary is still pretty poor.
That's what's so tricky about this. I agree. And then it's Jimmy Garoppolo on the other side, which I don't trust Jimmy Garoppolo either, but I don't know.
Yeah, it's honestly, I mean, it's probably 6-1, half dozen the other at this point, just because you've got a much better quarterback with the Rams, but at the same time,
you sure?
Well, I mean, better on paper. Let's put it that way, right? Like, the problem is that you get Stafford out there now with what's being described as a chronic bad back, an ankle injury, a series of other injuries. You've got an offensive coordinator who seemingly kind of just like pulled back the game plan from what we saw the last, the early few weeks with Sean McVay, and just
I think the Robert Woods injury is huge for them.
Yeah,
that's somebody who he trusted to get open and catch every pass.
Just as like we all said it was, and frankly, putting Odell Beckham Jr. in there is not a replacement for what Robert Woods does. And just because you think that Odell Beckham Jr. may be a more, I mean, how would I describe this? More talented wide receiver
more
in some
dynamic.
ways.
Yep.
I don't know that he's as he isn't as strong a producer as Robert Woods is. Yep. Robert Woods gets it done, and Odell Beckham is now on his 3rd team because of not living up to the production that warrants what he actually brings to the team. So yeah, I think it's not an easy evaluation trying to figure out between those two teams who you'd rather play. But I kind of think I'd still rather play the 49ers as of now, because you just never know. Stafford could do something crazy and suddenly make some huge throw. I don't think that I think you know what you're going to be facing when you face the 49ers. You know, you just have to be ready for an incredibly diverse run game and a defense that's going to get after the passer.
The NFC is wide open. I mean,
Yep.
kind of wide open. I don't think Washington's going to be able to do anything in the playoffs if they make it. But like the top 5-6 teams, just depends on which day you catch them, right? That's really what it feels like, and it feels like that way, especially in the AFC as well. With Tennessee being so up and down, Baltimore trying to lose a million games. It's a really weird year for the NFL right now.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, if you would, again, if you had told us what the standings would be at the beginning of the season, like what they are now, it would have been very hard to believe, especially like the way it all unfolded. You had this large group of 4 or 5 teams at the top of the NFC that just came out like gangbusters and looked like that they were all going to be very difficult to separate, and then suddenly they just all started losing, and so it's just muddied the waters a lot. We still got a lot of football left.
Got a lot of football left, right? We've got 6 games left.
Yeah, so it's still not, it certainly isn't settled. It's just now that we're post Thanksgiving, it's kind of appropriate to at least begin to start having these conversations about
who's the best team in the NFC right now, if you had to pick. Let me rephrase that. In the playoffs, which team do you trust the most?
I guess the Packers.
I would say the Buccaneers.
Yeah, I don't know.
I know their defense is not very good, but man, their offense is tough to stop too. So I don't know. They all can be beaten. None of these teams
they're all
are
flawed. Yeah,
none of them are going to be like a 7-point favorite in the playoffs. They're just not going to be. Right?
Yeah, I mean, I think any one of these teams can beat any others. I mean, the only advantage is if the Packers were somehow to get, I mean, somehow it's not hard. If the Packers were to somehow to get the number 1 seed, that would make things difficult for a lot.
And they're playing in Lambeau. I agree.
Yeah, but if they're not, then they're just another one of these teams.
Just another one of these teams. All right, that is it for today's show. Landon, we got busy week. We've got Tuesday tomorrow. We're gonna probably answer some questions. We'll have a crossover show maybe on Wednesday. Thursday, the Cowboys play, but we'll try to get a preview show out early that day, so you guys can listen to it all the way up to the game, and then we'll talk about it afterwards. It's another crazy week here for the Locked On Cowboys podcast. Make sure you are subscribing, downloading the podcast to the show wherever you get your podcast. You can follow us on YouTube. You can follow the show at Locked On Cowboys. You can follow Landon at McCool BCB, and I'm at Marcus _Mosher. And we'll see you next time.